are some of the common traps leaders and brands can tumble into that get them into all sorts of reputation problems? This is the second in a series of three where I'm going to share my top tips that can help to keep your brand and organization out of the headlines for all the wrong reasons. I'm going to share three with you today that can make a huge difference for your reputation and credibility. Here's the first tip that can make a huge difference to you if you're wanting to avoid having your reputation dragged through the mud. And it's simply this: put out small fires before they grow. This sounds so obvious, but in my experience, many leaders, brands, organizations simply ignore it or don't put this into practice. Now, there will be a myriad of challenges, problems, issues going on inside your organization or business at any one time. It could simply be a customer hasn't had their expectation met, or it can be some other little problem that can become a ticking time bomb. And what we often do, because everybody's busy, is we hope that will just go away on its own. And the thing is, most percolating issues don't resolve themselves. They need some sort of human intervention. Often I get called in to help organizations manage big crises, and it's pretty obvious to me that they're not crises at all. They're smaller issues, smaller fires that were allowed to grow. Maybe they were ignored completely, or they weren't managed effectively. So keep an eye on things like, how are your complaints tracking? Do you actually satisfy people's complaints, or are they just left unresolved? What processes do you have in place to make sure that you're aware of where issues are starting to grow? Do you discuss these regularly, or is it just done in an ad hoc way? Do you have some sort of process for managing these issues? Organisations that stay on the front foot, that are proactive rather than constantly reactive in firefighting mode, take this seriously and make it their business to address issues head on. As soon as a small fire breaks out, they're onto it straight away. That's the best way to make sure that you're not experiencing major public crises. The best crises are actually snuffed out before they even get there. And a lot of the time, when issues are managed well, we don't even hear about them. And that's exactly as it should be, because they're managed behind closed doors. They're managed out of the public eye. They're managed within the walls of the organization. That's what you need to be striving to do as well. The second trap I see many leaders and brands falling into is complacency. It's thinking that just because you've currently got a good reputation, you've got loyal customers, you don't have any big public problems, that's how it's going to continue. Now, you can have a great reputation, but that is no guarantee that you're not going to have a big problem erupt at some time that's going to cause a problem for your reputation. Just because you've got loyal customers, just because your brand is looked on pretty favorably by the public at large, doesn't mean they'll forgive you if you make a big mistake or you find yourself caught up in something that's negative. So there are many brands out there that have suffered the consequences of complacency. Now, it's true that some big brands, and I'm thinking Qantas, maybe the major supermarkets, the banks, have taken reputation hits, and yet their share prices, their profits haven't been affected. But they certainly go through spikes and slumps. There is generally an impact. And I guess the best predictor of whether you're going to suffer a hit to your bottom line is to not suffer reputation crisis in the first place. So be vigilant. Always be on the alert for issues on the horizon or potential problems that could impact your reputation. Don't be complacent. Don't take your customer goodwill or positive community sentiment for granted. This is actually more precious than gold to your business or organization. So treasure it. nurture it, build those relationships, build trust with anybody who is in any way important to your brand and what it does. Never take for granted how important that is, and never rest on your laurels and rely on that, thinking that you can perhaps get away with some negativity because people will forgive you. I think a good reputation gives you a form of cushioning. It might buy you a little bit of time in terms of how you respond to a negative situation, but if it's something that you've caused or it's something that you have not managed well, in the long run, people won't forgive you, and that will definitely mean that you take a reputation hit. So don't be complacent, treasure your good reputation. And the third trap and tip that I want to cover is really the polar opposite of number two. And it's that consistent incompetence breeds contempt. Some brands just lurch from one crisis to another and they never seem to learn. And there becomes this compounding effect. People will quickly pile on to a brand that's already got a really poor reputation. If you look at Optus as an example, it's had a series of pretty serious mishaps over the last few years. And so whenever Optus is in the headlines, what happens? Those negative stories are continually dredged up. And that becomes part and parcel of that brand's story. And so people form this attitude of contempt, this overall poor perception of that brand, which makes it very hard to re-establish trust and goodwill. And this one's particularly important now with the increased emergence of AI. We're seeing from global data and from usage figures that many people are going directly to AI as a source of information on all things, from how to make buying decisions to finding out the news headlines. They're going straight to AI platforms. And what they're finding there is any information, any old media coverage, any old comments on community forums like Reddit, even Wikipedia, that's going to come up in response to people's prompts. So what it means is that your dirty laundry stays around forever. People, if they're doing searches on AI about your brand, are going to be finding all sorts of things, maybe issues that were dealt with years ago, maybe misinformation that's old that you've since corrected. But the LLMs never forget. They have very long memories. And so now this information is readily accessible to everyone. So the best antidote to that is to manage issues responsibly. Manage issues before they grow into something more serious. That way, you're not going to be continually worried about what people are going to find through their AI searches. But remember, if you have a public misstep that leads to reputation damage, you need to make sure that you rebuild trust and goodwill with all your key stakeholders. Don't just assume the storm has passed and it's all good. You've got to actually be proactive in rebuilding those relationships. That's the key to regaining reputation. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen by itself. You're going to need to work at it. But consistent mishaps will almost certainly create contempt towards your brand. And that's what you definitely want to avoid. Managing issues proactively sometimes takes courage. Often leaders don't want to talk about issues that are percolating because they're quietly hoping if they just don't mention them, then they'll go away of their own accord. But that's not effective. It's certainly not effective now in the AI age. People can see deeply into your business, into your brand, and they're seeing all kinds of information that you're probably not even aware of. So manage issues proactively. That's the best way to protect your reputation. If you would like support with anything to do with upskilling your teams, getting strategic advice about building trust and reputation for your brand, for your leadership team, for your organization as a whole, then let's have a chat. I regularly speak at conferences. I run executive masterclasses. I work with whole teams all around building skills in terms of trust, credibility, positive influence, and reputation. This is such an important area. The future of your brand depends on this. Let's have a talk and see how we can make sure your reputation is positive and is always protected. I'll see you next time.